And welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another OSR tabletop with myself, DM Bloodworth. And why is that sound still going? Yeah. I see one. I have to turn off the volume on the YouTube side. And I always forget to do that. So anyway, welcome everyone. Happy holiday weekend. So if you're in the States, I don't know if it's elsewhere as well, but this is Labor Day weekend. So I wanted to really thank, I really wanted to thank the RPG Grandma for coming on as well, on this holiday weekend. And we're going to be talking about the alignment system because I know that she was talking recently about it, and I really did want to hear her take firsthand on it. But first, let me allow you to introduce yourself and and say hi to everyone.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Richard, for having me on. Um, I'm just a regular person. Really, really. I'm probably average IQ. I've got like a blue collar job. I am like as regular as you can get. Um, but I love role playing games. Well, and card games. I just like games. Okay. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, I did a video, which Richard knows how hard it is for me to make videos this particular year, but and I started talking about alignment because it's one of those love it hate it things in the tabletop community, and I think people just in general don't understand it, even in games like modern D&D, where it gets smaller and smaller every edition, what they put in there and why it's even possibly there and what you can do with it and what replaces it maybe in other games. So I started out by just sharing where it started on my last video that I posted,
Yeah.
and to get people to start to see, maybe if you see the progression of how it developed a little bit, it'd make more sense.
Yeah. Now, what was your first introduction to tabletop role-playing games, in general, or more specifically with Dungeons and Dragons, which I believe was the first to have an alignment system in it?
Yeah,
But
well, it was Dungeons and Dragons.
yeah.
It was my oldest, youngest, my okay. I'm the oldest cousin, so it
Okay.
would be the oldest boy of the cousins, but he's younger than me.
Okay.
And his dad's super smart. Like the guy was building computers for fun, built an organ for fun. I mean, this is what the guy does.
Hmm.
Well, my cousin was always into war games, tactical stuff. So we were always playing our own version of war games with our little toy soldiers and stuff, and
Hmm.
building armies anyway. But we weren't really using any rule sets because we were kids.
Right.
We had like our own rules. Well, his dad tried D&D, the little books, the
Hmm.
original, and his dad apparently hated it. But he looked over at his kid and said, "Hey, have these books." I'm not sure what year my cousin got those books. We were all a bunch of kids, but we were all sitting around on the floor at one of the homes. Him, his older sister,
Hmm.
me, trying to figure out how to play D&D. And I know it had to be after Blackmore came out
Hmm.
because that dang temple,
Yeah.
those
Echo of the
giant.
Frog. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we went there. It was not a good scene, but we
Yeah.
had fun. And from that day forward, we were hooked, all of us playing D&D. And so we kind of grew up like one of us eventually ended up with the basic box. Somebody ended up with the monster manual. Then we all ended up with the monster manual. We all ended up with, and we had to save up our money and a lot of times to get the stuff. And so that's really how it started. Is just kind
Yep.
of grew up with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so alignment was normal to me because when you're little and it's just in the rules, and grant you, we were probably, in fact, I know we were playing the game wrong because I go back and reread the rules as an adult and go, yeah,
Yeah.
we didn't do that. But you grow up with a game, and as the game's evolving, so it's just you don't really question a lot of things in it until later on when you become more cognitive that other people are questioning things in it.
Right.
So that's how it
Yeah.
started.
Yeah. So I probably started a couple years after you, although, or certainly at least two editions later than what you started with, because I did not start with the white box. I started with, and I just recently reached out to my former dungeon master, my first dungeon master, and he was like, "Really? That was like 50 years ago." It was like, I can't believe you're asking me this question now, and so I really thought we started with the Holmes edition, but then he was like, "Well, I have the Holmes edition, but as soon as he got the monster manual, the AD&D monster manual, he was like, I was just using stuff out of there, and then that was the sequence in which AD&D was released. It was a monster manual first, then the player's handbook, then the Dungeon Master's Guide, and Gary's purpose for doing that, which at least I'll take him at his word in his writings, was that he thought that the game system should be built around what you might encounter, and then he built it out from there. But the earliest forms of alignment was just good. I'm sorry, not good. Lawful, neutral, and chaotic, and everything was categorized into that. And you didn't have to think too much about, you know, uh, what is specifically lawful, or what is neutral, or what is chaotic. You just knew that there was, like, it was kind of like, you'll know it when you see it kind of mentality, which for younger kids, like many of us were when we first started. I mean, I was only 11 or 12 when we first started playing, and we didn't too much think about alignment as being part of our character's persona per se. It was just a category of our actions that we really was the mindset that we had. Um, you as you already mentioned, like, everybody plays a little bit differently and everything. So how is alignment working in your earliest memory in your games?
I think we pretty much just glossed it as, well, lawful must be good and chaos must be evil.
Okay.
I think you know, thinking about how we were playing and stuff, and keeping in mind that, well, we were, going around trying to get treasure and killing things. We were pretty dodgy, like most player groups. Um, so our concept of good probably was trying to do some good things and have some good outcome for not just us but other people. So it seems to me that's really how the D&D games broke down. We weren't
Right.
really doing anything too terrible, but we were trying to survive, that kind of situation. And it was later when they started adding in all the nuances that and you're older then too, so you can kind of understand
Right.
where they're coming from. That you can start to develop the idea that, oh, this is more like personality traits, but that's really not how it started at
Right.
all. Cosmic forces, and because that was never really explained well,
No, no, it wasn't.
unless you read the sections that explained that, or articles. Um, uh, I think that gets lost in the shuffle a lot, that you have these
Right.
two opposing cosmic forces,
Right.
and they're not good and they're not evil,
Yeah.
and it's actually a good, actually really good, for story building for all the people who like to do, epic stories.
Right.
And there's literature that totally takes that route. Morlock, uh,
Hmm.
the author, that
Yeah.
it's Law and Chaos, but
Yeah.
also there's some Paul, what's his name? The guy who wrote High Crusades and the
Yeah.
Three Lions. That's you've got in Three Lions, you've got chaos and law.
Yeah.
So a lot of the books that show up in the in section of the D&D stuff that Gary put out, um, you've got books like that where you've got the impending chaos,
Yeah.
you've got the law, the order of nature and the universe versus the destructive, no, and also creative, no law. And so you've got that life happens in the in between part,
Yes. Yes.
and because that's never really explained well, I think that gets missed.
Yeah.
But we even got a modern game now that I do believe that is its concept. Roomhammer
Yeah.
games, they've got one.
Yeah.
The Crown and the Skull. I mean,
Yes.
law, skull is chaos.
Yeah.
And I haven't played that game, but I've learned enough about it just in passing that I'm like, oh, it's the law chaos, uh, you know,
Yeah.
interchange.
Yeah. A lot of more modern and including OSR, OSR role playing games have gone back to that three axis. Just law, neutral, and chaos, and then and less of a strict guideline as what would come out with AD&D's 9 categories of alignment. And what I've always found interesting about um, the 9 categories of alignment as a player, because I started off in D&D as just a player. I really didn't start dungeon mastering D&D until I was probably about 15. So probably spent the first 3 or 4 years I was just playing. And D&D wasn't my first game mastery either. I started doing I believe I was doing Conan, TSR's Conan prior to that. I was doing other game systems prior to that. But the thing that got me with the alignment was with my characters, because I tended to play my characters more chaotic neutral. And I was like, yeah, but like I never could fit my characters into just a two-axis, category. I was like, yeah, but I lean more towards good than neutral, but I don't so much care about the laws, or lawfulness to do that good. So I was like, you know,
Well, don't feel bad.
yeah, yeah. It's like I was, much more, much more. A line crosser kind of thing. It's like and that's just my play style. So it was like, yeah, I don't want to be thrown into this, well, you have to be more strictly chaotic neutral, and a lot of times chaotic neutral is looked at as being, virtually as bad as chaotic evil, if not, because at least chaotic evil, where they're coming from. And chaotic neutral got that unpredictability kind of view on them. And so it's like, I've actually had people say I'd prefer to have a chaotic evil player character in the group than a chaotic neutral one because I know exactly what they're going to do next. You know,
They're eventually going to stab me in the back. Yes.
yeah, yeah. It's
For
like,
a fact.
I know not to trust you, and you, I have no clue. And and I was like, that's not really what chaotic neutral is either. But um, like you said earlier, they weren't really described that well. And the thing that I came across years later, I don't think it ever happened in a Dragon magazine either, was they started taking popular fiction characters and putting them in those categories.
Yes, yes, the fiction characters, which, if you could go back in time and we all started with the little white box set, and keep in mind, I may have been playing that because that's what my cousin had. I didn't have that. So, eventually I got, later stuff. But, and nobody had the chainmail rules. We didn't
Mhm.
have the chainmail rules. We didn't have the Avalon Hill game.
Right,
So, we were like doing a, what I
right,
presume from what I gathered from other people, what everybody else was doing, kind of plugging in the holes and,
right.
teleporting the party to the dungeon that somebody had made, and that kind of thing. But the alignment in chainmail, when you start reading through it, they straight up say, and if people had had that, I think they would have known then that it's not, law isn't necessarily good and chaos isn't necessarily evil, because they say the figures are hard to place
Hmm.
as far as being good or evil,
Right.
but they are easier to place if they're lawful or
Mm.
chaotic
Yeah.
or neutral. And it was for building armies.
Yes. And what the question here, I think, relates to that. There were more factions, so
Yes.
that you'd have different opposing armies on the same, field. I mean, a lot of people, and you mentioned it already. What you didn't have at the time was, you mentioned earlier, like Temple of the Frog. And the first time that I read Temple of the Frog, as I was going through it, it actually says you need chainmail to do this. It was like you need to run this particular adventure. And I was like, and then I recently just got the outdoors survival game from Avalon Hill, which was another component of the three. You really couldn't just run D&D, 1974 D&D, without those other two components, unless you just made up your own and filled in all those
Yeah,
gaps.
which is what
Those
everybody started
did,
doing.
which everyone started doing because it wasn't very clear. That was like, oh wait, you need this in
It
order to
wasn't,
be able to
and
do
it
that.
wasn't clear
Yeah.
how you were going to use chainmail
Mm.
or how you were going to use the Avalon Hill stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, so I can look back at it and go, oh, well, this is what I would use.
Yes.
This is what I would import into D&D. But even then, would that be the same as what you would import into it?
Mm.
Ah, so but chainmail makes D&D make more sense once you
Yes.
have it in your hot little mitts. Then they came out with that last book that nobody ever seems to have read. That is D&D's most modern version of chainmail before they completely stopped making stuff for old D&D.
Yeah.
So it also talks about complicated, um, multi-classed uh, figures, aka NPCs or characters, in those fantasy rules, and not messing up your game balance. Game balance, because they're doing war. They're doing war, and
Yes.
so they don't want the armies to be so out of whack. But they had to have these lists because if you look through the literature and the
Yeah.
stories that they were pulling stuff out of, and they cite authors. Um, dwarves don't get along with goblins, so they can't be in the same armies. They have to
Right.
be in separate factions.
Yes.
You know, men can be in any of it, but
Mm.
dwarves have to be in separate factions. And then, of course, they produce D&D. They reiterate the alignment system, and then they mention alignment language. The other thing,
Yeah.
everybody's been like, what to do with that?
Yeah.
you know, and then at swords can have alignments. We get that.
Hmm.
And then the first bit of personality information, I think, is in Greyhawk supplement.
Right.
Uh, but the first bit of you can hide your alignment from others is in Blackmore.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a, it was always an interesting, thing, the way that alignment, slowly got integrated into becoming more of a reflection of the character's personality or guide that they would follow or whatever. Then it got tied to classes, and that was, a
Oh, yeah, it
paladin
happened
had
pretty early,
lawful.
too.
Yes, yeah, very, well, initially, right? So the paladin came out, the paladin had to be lawful good, and had to be very strict to lawful good. And then that's when they were kind of forced to say, well, this is what that means,
Right.
but it,
Assassins had to be a
yeah,
specific
assassins had
kind.
to be evil. Um, they, thieves were almost universally neutral.
Clerics
They,
had to be lawful,
druids had to
first
be neutral.
neutral. Yeah,
Um, rangers had to be
I think they were neutral.
neutral. They had to be neutral. Um, although they could be, barbarians had to be chaotic.
Hmm.
And then it just started, like, it started missing when they started doing those things. It started missing some context, some exceptions to the rule.
Or,
You
or
know,
why, because you
yeah,
can't
yeah,
just sit there and go, why? That seems silly
yeah.
to me.
It's
I
like,
would do this.
and I think what came out of that, the problem with that is that when you start categorizing different personality traits into those 3 columns, or even 9 columns, when you start looking at them, it's like, you know, can pirates truly be simply chaotic evil if they follow a code? Because pirates did have a code.
Right.
And so as soon as you integrate a code, then codes are a lawful trait, and so now you're running into that issue of, barbarians have a code, they have a
Right.
warrior's code, they have whatever. And so now you're starting to lose, well, chaotic doesn't mean chaotic stupid, or chaotic doesn't mean I can make no sense of anything in the world, or I follow no rules whatsoever. Go ahead.
Well, Gary, in the strategic review, after D&D had been put out, realized that if he could redo the alignment system that they published,
Hmm.
he would have done that. And in doing so, the monsters, some of the monsters, would have changed their alignments.
Hmm.
Which, in fact, if you compare the monsters from the old D&D original to the monster manual in AD&D, you will find monsters that change their alignments.
Back and forth. The orcs do that.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
you will. Yeah, yeah. You will find like some surprises. Like
yeah,
Black Dragon used to be what? Black Dragon is what? Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
so that had happened, but he wrote an article where he tried to sit down and explain. And at that point, they had 5. He had come up with a way to explain 5, like you see in the Holmes later. Um, the language, what they were thinking, and he talks about. So you got your character, and let's say it's the character supposed to be lawful good. Say he's a paladin. The character, the DM, is supposed to be monitoring that character's the choices you make with your character, and they start in the center of their alignment. And they actually had like little pictures in this article, and on a sliding scale, back and forth. But if you go too far one direction, or you get pushed into another alignment, again, very vague about how far is too far, um, uh, you change alignment.
Mm.
And then of course, he doesn't talk about consequences because we don't get those until Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
But that morality scale. If anybody watches Professor DM over in, was it Dungeon Craft? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. He has a morality scale that he uses for his games, and
Yeah.
he has everybody start at neutral, and then
Hmm.
if you go on full evil, which is however he defines it, and it's points, um, your character becomes an NPC. Adios amigos. You're now a villain.
Yeah.
You'll roll up a new character, but uh, that sliding scale was in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Hmm.
I've only seen one in my whole life. Seen one DM actually impose alignment punishment, and that's simply because we could not explain to this guy how to play a lawful good character. He was just incapable of playing a lawful good character. He
Yeah.
could he rolled up all the stats for a paladin,
Yeah.
which had and got all the cool bennies, and then proceeded to be the most cutthroat person we'd ever met. He'd stab people in the back. He'd kill children. He'd and his justifications always, there was always, a reason, but it
Yeah.
was just, that realization, this guy will trip you so the zombies will eat you. Absolutely. He is
Yeah.
not like, he can't even comprehend why it wasn't okay for his character to be like that.
Right.
And so that was like the only time, like, and everybody tried. The DM tried to explain alignment. All the players at the table tried again and again. And finally, it's just like, you can't play a paladin. You
Yeah.
just can't.
Well, the two extremes are the hardest of alignments to play. So lawful good and chaotic evil are the two hardest alignments to play because, like you said, very few people truly understand what lawful good looks like. All right, and very few people understand that chaotic evil isn't chaotic stupid. It's like so when they're looking at them, like I played a cleric character for D&D Basic that was the closest I think I ever came to playing a lawful good character. And I oftentimes had to step away from what the rest of the party was looking to do and almost correct them and say, no, I'm not going to do that. This is the direction that we should be going in.
Yeah,
And
it's a worldview. Very
yeah,
specific.
and it became a struggle for me to keep in character and yet still work with the party and doing their primary objectives as well, which might have even been my primary objective, but like a side thing comes up and these people are in desperate need for assistance, and I'm like, we need to go do this first. So no, we have a very specific thing,
So
and and I ultimately sided with them, to go along with the rest of the party. And I regretted not just splitting from the party and doing that, and that was the first time that I realized I think I finally got what a lawful good character is like to run,
yeah, people are asking questions or
Yeah.
making statements here. So, well, you're building. So if we look at it from the original chainmail and original little rules, as we first got them in the three little books, yes, they're for big faction groups,
Hmm.
and yes, the neutral people are kind of like in between. But neutral groups can have their own agendas as well. So theoretically, in a big war game, you could have three armies. You could have the law side, the chaos side, and then the neutrals hanging out. And maybe the neutrals are just like, hey, yeah, when law and chaos gets done killing each other, then we'll swoop down and kill the survivors because
Yeah.
that's better for us.
Yeah.
They they could pull that. So it is an alignment. Interestingly, when Gary wrote the expansion up to 5, which then Holmes produced,
Right.
and Holmes straight up said you can keep your alignment secret. Um, uh, and then AD&D said, hey, on that language thing, alignment language, you don't want to go around flaunting your alignment language either, because that could
Right.
have consequences. Um, so there was a secrecy side to the alignment as well.
Hmm.
Well, whereas D&D expanded to 9, the other game that I use and pull stuff out of is the old Arduin game.
Mm-hmm.
It's got 14.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but if you look at it break it down into, and it has personality traits. It's got the lawful good, then it's got moderately lawful and marginally lawful. Those are actually neutral lawful
Right.
positions. And then it's got lawful evil, and then it's got true neutral, then it's got the marginally neutral and the neutral evil, and then it's got chaotic good, true chaotic, which is actually neutral chaotic, and then chaotic evil. And then it's got the extra fun ones: immoral evil, and insane.
Yeah.
And it gives you a couple one-liners about what those things are. So people were wrestling with this, but if you got to look at it as, I know some people use this is what my character would do as like the lame excuse for the lame thing that they did. But it's not exactly an illegitimate argument, as some people say.
Right. Yeah.
Right, because if you're actually role playing the character and your character
Mhm.
actually has certain tendencies and traits, then they might actually do that. Otherwise, you're role playing another type of character.
Right.
And uh, well, yes, it can punish them from acting outside of their alignment. Again, that depends on the DM. If the
Yeah.
DM is like, no, 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 versus using the sliding scale, which is what the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons monster
Right.
DM guide
Yeah.
says to do, and
Right.
what the article out of the Strategic Review said to do, which is you give them the rope to hang themselves
Yes.
or to
Yes.
save themselves.
Yeah.
So it brought a whole new spectrum, someone's saying, about the 14. So you let them drift in the directions that they're going, and they can drift back. But
Yeah.
as they're drifting a certain direction, you can let them do the thing they're not supposed to do, but it should have
Right.
consequences. You
Yes.
don't have to immediately hit them with the bolt of lightning from the sky
Mm.
and strip a whole level from them and all their experience points and say you have changed alignment. But it's going to have consequences if you're acting outside of the ethos expected for the group. So in a culture, say like an orc culture, where uh, strength is important. If you show a weakness towards showing, say, mercy and compassion,
Yeah.
even though that's what you want to do, if
Mm.
the other orcs see it,
Yeah.
it could have negative consequences
Yeah.
for you. It's not that the DM is being a jerk. The DM is playing the culture correctly.
Mm.
and and that's the thing I don't think people understand. Even in 5e, which has very very small explanations,
Yeah.
you want a really good explanation of D&D's um, alignments, you really need that AD&D 1e book, and
Yes.
just sit there, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and read it, and then reread it, and it'll start making sense.
Right.
The version we have now is, alignment, everybody hates it, we'll write a few words here, we'll write a few words here, and we'll move on. And the thing is, people who role play characters, you end up creating alignments if you don't even have alignments in your game anyway.
Yeah, you're
I mean,
going to.
you go down and you put, well, these are my quirks and these are my flaws, or this is my deadly sin I follow. That, if there's gambling going on,
Yeah,
I'm gonna go do that, right?
yeah,
And you end up coming up with, well, this is how do I describe you? There'll be like a questionnaire to fill out,
mhm,
and you'll put in there, um, uh, and what you're going to do. Can the DM play the culture correctly without the ADD method? Absolutely. See, here's the thing: D&D was just one of the games TSR put out. I played Star Frontiers. There's no alignment system in that. I
right.
played Gamma World. There's no alignment system in that. Metamorphosis Alpha, no alignment system in that. Boot Hill, it's really a skirmish game, but again, no alignment system in that.
Yeah,
Warriors of Mars, which actually cites getting D&D to do the certain types of characters. Really, it's a war game, guys. It's a war game. But again, even though it gives you levels for playing fantastic personalities and all this stuff, no alignments in that.
yeah,
So they produced several games that didn't have alignments, but they told you about the cultures. They told you about the tendencies of those species and races and things.
yes,
And so you're going to be likely to do at least some of that stuff. And in some cases, react incredibly poorly to certain situations on top of whatever makes your Vrust more interesting than another Vrust, or your Duralocite different,
yeah,
or your Red Martian different. So okay, when you are going through this stuff,
mm,
um, there's going to be parameters put on you.
right,
Period. By the game master, it's going to happen. So it's either going to happen because of the game's game mechanics, or it's going to happen because of some other feature in the setting, or both. But with D&D, it just has this underlying mechanic of law versus chaos, a
right,
perpetual battle between the two. And that is one of its deeper, less understood mechanics that it's supporting. And when you go in and you start reading really the old material with the different perspectives from different points of view, if you actually put yourself like, what is the rules telling me?
yeah,
It's telling you there's a cosmic battle. It's telling you that going into a dungeon is incredibly dangerous. It's telling you that the Temple of Frog is freaking going to kill you, and there's cults and
mm,
undead everywhere. It's a freaking horror story.
yeah,
That's why people go, you can't play horse stuff with D&D, and I'm like, have you seen the original books?
yeah, yeah,
Maybe people weren't playing it right. I don't know, but I'm looking at it, looking back at it, going, yeah, underwater horror is what I see.
mm,
Evil clerics all live in underwater palaces in Blackmore.
yeah,
Anyone can blurry the water. I mean, this is some Cthulhu stuff there.
yeah,
I mean, so when you go back and reread this stuff, you know, not from maybe the way you originally played it, but with different, put on a different pair of rosy glasses, um, you often walk out going, yeah, the vibe here is totally different than what it's become,
right,
and that's a thing. Yeah, alignment is asexual
yeah,
according to 5e. Well,
yeah,
the majority of your I get the joke, but the majority of your beings in a game setting in a world aren't going to be these extremes.
right, right,
Not the lawful good and the chaotic evil extreme. Just
right,
like
right,
in real life. But are you likely to meet somebody who's lawful evil in real life? I can tell you can.
yeah,
I've had that ephany in dealing with people.
yeah,
Yeah, this person is lawful evil. Thank God they have no power.
yeah,
You know.
yeah, it's a, I want to get to some of the comments that were made along the way. So like, so alignments didn't equal moral archetypes until Gary changed it that way. I think Gary started to, and this is based on his book on role playing mastery. All right, so being a player, and also probably his game mastery as well. So those two books. So I know he wrote those in 1987, 87 and 88. But I think that was, a true reflection of where he saw some of these things. And he always mentioned that alignment was an essential rule to Dungeons and Dragons, and that the idea of removing it, all right, was like you're no longer playing Dungeons and Dragons without it. And what I think when he started tying it more towards a moral compass and following those alignments as a moral compass, was that he must have seen over the course of, the 10 to 12 years or so when he first started writing those comments, that without alignment, he basically came straight out and said, without alignment, you cannot have a heroic fantasy, because 99% of the players are going to come out there and they're going to be murder hobos. And that's what he didn't want Dungeons and Dragons to devolve into, was
which it has.
which it has in some cases. Yes, it has in some cases. But that's what, he really believed, that your purpose was to be role playing in a heroic fantasy. All right, so very much attuned to Lord of the Rings, and what, the every player character was the Fellowship of the Ring. As part of the Fellowship of the Ring, they were supposed to be countering these great evils, and whatnot, that's the full scope. If you look at all of the adventure modules that were official adventures for Dungeons and Dragons,
Yeah, they're always heroic.
they're always heroic. I can't think of any that would put you in, in the frame of, you're an evil character. And he actually very specifically said, sure, you could play an evil character, but you're not going to last very long, because the consequences of your actions are going to come down on you, if not internally within your own player party group, but they're going to start hunting you down.
Right.
Now you're not only fighting.
I have stories where things
Yeah.
went terribly wrong in game. We had one game where our party massacred the village of Hamlet. Yep, it killed like everything. It was not how it was supposed to go, but it's how it went down. And then there was extreme consequences, because the characters involved were not evil characters, but it simply became a battle of survival, and the town lost. And so then there had to be consequences down the road for that. But things happen when you're role playing a game. And I have played an evil character. I'm going to be playing an evil character again soon. But I honestly didn't like the evil character that I played the last time I played an evil character.
Mhm.
It wasn't fun for me. It wasn't the same sort of challenges. At least, and and I was playing, so I wasn't the DM. So we could
Right.
argue that there were some DM issues there as well. But you are supposed to be doing these epic things, and to do these epic things, the authors that they were pulling from, well, they're pulling also from ancient mythology, where and the way that folklore and the people who study mythologies and legends look at stuff. And there is a tendency to break everything into this one group here, one group there, and they fight. And then in the middle, things happen, good and bad, for the rest of us little people. Okay, cosmic forces. And you just have to read enough mythology books, and you'll begin to see this pattern. good, evil, light, darkness, life, death, chaos, law. Um, that doesn't mean that they all fall under the same little columns, but that's one of the things they do when they're trying to interpret and reinterpret the stories and all that kind of stuff. Whether they're right or wrong, there's a lot of times I feel like they've got a mallet and they got a little round peg and they got a square and they're trying to pound the mythological being into the square,
Yeah.
because they only have a square and a triangle and they got a round peg.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what it'll fit into,
Hmm.
but and yes, subjectivity, big
Yes.
subject. Not wasn't a big subject when I was a kid.
No.
We had a lot more objective or clear cut right and wrong way of thinking. Now everything is subjective, even when we know it's objective, which is crazy. If I jump off a building, I'm going to fall because of gravity. Gravity is not subjective, no matter how much I tell myself it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of people running around saying social construct on everything. Everything's subjective. Everything's perspective. Everything's this, and it's actually a misuse of academic way of studying cultures. I know because that's what I went to college for. So, yes, you're supposed to step back, try to not be biased, try to not project your prejudices and cultural biases on others, and try to be objective and try to take a culture at their as they're presenting themselves in like cultural anthropology or even sociology. But the problem is some things are just kind of universally sucky.
Yeah.
uh, and and it's sometimes you just look at a culture and you go, this isn't a very pleasant culture.
Yeah.
There's not really anything redeeming going on here, and people are like horrified when somebody comes out and just says it. But there I do have stuff where you're like, this culture exists, and the way they exist is they go to a village and they kill they attack it, they take the children, the boys that they want to keep, they then tell them they have to kill their own family members, often horrifically, and then they can live and be part of this new tribe. That's not very great.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
by many culture standards.
Yeah.
So objectively and subjectively, this particular tribe that used to exist in Africa, that
Mm.
I don't think exists anymore because finally everybody got together and dealt with them. Um, they're not nice. They're all male and they're not nice. Okay, so you can go through and you can read things, and once you understand, sometimes some things are neutral, man. It's no judgment. Okay, but other things you look at and you go, that's not great.
Yeah.
That's really not cool, man. And that's just the way it is. But when you go to write, you have to take yourself out of that, and somehow taking yourself out of that for the purpose of studying another culture has become, that's just the way we're supposed to see the world, and that's just not how the world works. It just
Yeah.
doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way in D&D. It doesn't work that way if you're playing a non-aligned alignment game like Star Frontiers or Traveler or GURPS, and it doesn't work that way in real life. We there are things that are evil,
Yes.
evil to do to
And
other living things.
and
They're just bad. You
yeah.
shouldn't build them.
And even if the game system doesn't have an actual system for alignment or a system for, controlling those kinds of behaviors, um, the game master certainly should implement them. It's like you know, you can't be an incredible a-hole towards everyone you encounter,
Well,
and
somebody's
there's
eventually going to find
somebody's
it.
going to take care of you, and it's a,
Well, it's
so
it's a mechanic.
yes, do
To
you
Mr.
really need
Grimy,
to,
it's not that the world doesn't follow the book. It's rather you have a mechanic, and in the background of the setting, at a very unknowable level, like a level you can't, but the human mind cannot truly understand or wrap itself around. You have a cosmic force of law, you have a cosmic force of chaos, and they are competing to be the bestest. And they are competing on your planet, in your setting.
Yeah.
Okay, that is probably the best way to look at it. And this helps you create conflict. And that is your job. Your job as the game master isn't to create harmony.
Yeah.
Your job of the game master is to create challenge and
Right.
conflict, choices, decisions, paradoxes that the players, via their player characters, regardless of whether you actually have an alignment system or not, have to deal with and make choices. And maybe none of the choices are going to be great, just like in real life. Like if you live long enough, you're going to find yourself in a situation going, option A sucks. Option B sucks. Option C, D, E, and F, and G sucks. Okay, which one is the least sucky? And you're going to have to make those choices.
Yeah.
It happens. Sometimes there is no really good choice. It's just a choice. And then from there, other choices will occur. If the party kill a shopkeep and steal everything and leave town, the constable will likely not find them until later on. Well, okay, let me tell you how the consequences went down for the destruction of the village of Hamlet. The majority of the characters in the party had pointed ears. They were either elves, half elves. There was a gnome. That was my character, who was like, "Oh my God, they're killing everybody." You know? And so there's always one survivor.
Yeah.
Okay, there's always a witness, even if it's the pig that the druid talks to later or something.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
you know, there's always a survivor. So in this scenario, the DM who let that go down, did not do anything to uh, have a different outcome, who actually just created a situation where, because of critical hits and all this stuff, that Hamlet gets killed, everybody in it, and he sends all the villagers into this group, including the women, and that was not cool, man.
Total devastation. Yeah.
Yeah, it was bizarre. So and I've played many games with the Village of Hamlet, in it. I've got the Village of Hamlet here. So the next DM, which was me, um, uh, and then somebody's playing my character for me. I'm like, this can't be allowed. So this one survivor, because that's my rule. There's always a survivor. Describes pointed ear people killed all these other people. Well, the kingdom's a human kingdom. Instantly, overnight, elves and gnomes and anybody else with little pointy ears became personas non grata in that kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
It had horrific consequences. And the party couldn't put up their hands and go, "It was us," because that they're going to get killed. So they had to flee. But it resulted in the deaths of lots of innocent demi-humans, the ones who couldn't get out.
Yeah.
So the learning experience then for everybody else was, never do that again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they felt really bad, So no, you don't have to change their alignments, which I could have done that.
Yeah.
It's just I decided to police it based on how mobs react, how people freak out, how
Yeah.
governments react, good or bad. A lawful, any government, even a chaotic one, anybody maintaining power cannot have whole villages of theirs getting wiped out. They're
Yeah,
not they're not going to tolerate it, whether
only
they're
they can
allowed
do
to do it
it.
or whether
Only
they're
they're
elected.
allowed to do that, but not
Yeah,
not
yeah,
other
they can do it.
outsiders,
Nobody
right?
can.
Exactly.
Right. And
You know, yeah,
so and
it's not
like
like a
when I
one
get
for one. To answer that question, you're not doing like a one for one. You're not like deducting chits from from a line and saying, all right, well, now you're this or that and everything. You're going to kind of holistically, evaluate what was the performance of the player party in this way on a morality performance, kind of, and you could do a variety of things that could at least send the message that if you're slaughtering commoners in a particular village, you're not gaining any experience points from doing
nope.
that. You're not, you know, there are other ways that you can send that message of, this is going to have negative consequences for you. Like you said, I mean, eventually, the government or whatever it is going to be like, hey, there's a whole group. I mean, I love the fact that you mentioned that, there's always a survivor. I mean, a druid could speak to the piece of moss on the wall. You know what I'm saying? You do have to speak with plants, so it doesn't even have to be something that they would even think of having to destroy as well. It's very, very important to have consequences and benefits for every action that the player characters take. It's very important that like the alignment system is not something that you're making that calculation over and over again, and with every single action, but you're going to take it in its totality. um, I wanted to shift a little bit to just the idea, because I know it's come up a few times, like alignment is only for certain classes, and and that for the most part, I think, is one of the issues with the game mechanics in general, is that they really do focus only on clerics and paladins, sometimes rangers, sometimes druids. Although I love Robert Kuntz's take on dark druids, where it's like, no, they're still neutral, but they could be neutral evil druids, and you could have neutral good druids and everything like that. But I like the introduction of domains for deities. And even in my own home games, I started saying I'm not so much worried about if the cleric is following the alignment. I'm more concerned about the cleric character demonstrating the domains of their deity. So if you're worshiping a deity of light and healing and good and all of this, your actions have to demonstrate those domains. Otherwise, you're not going to get spells tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're,
Right.
yeah,
You
you
gotta
know,
please the god,
yes,
the god that's the
yeah,
deity that's granting those abilities. And if they're unhappy, well, then they should naturally take those powers away. We
yeah,
should have to go do penance, things like that. Like I do have a D&D character, um, basically 1E, uh, that I am a cleric, and my cleric's flaw, the reason he's out of Vidgery, is his order was like, you got to go out and you got to do these things, because he's a gambler.
mm,
Can't help it.
yeah,
He's a gambler. I gave him a flaw. So uh, when he's collecting money for the church, more or less, maybe it's going to make it to the church. Maybe not so much. Not if somebody's having a snail race or something at the
mm,
tavern. You know. Um, so that's his flaw, and also why he's not cloistered somewhere studying and doing something nice and pleasant.
mm,
uh, but yeah, they do have to please the being granting them their abilities, and
Yes.
I think some of the modern arcane magic classes, uh, they should be doing the same thing to
Right.
please their patron.
Hmm.
Okay, um, that is their dark overlord,
Yes. Yeah.
and whether they're a cleric or a warlock or whatever.
Right.
Um, the point being is, again, we're back to domains, cosmic forces.
Mm.
They have a lot of say in a game like D&D. It's part of the setting, and that you can tap into big time. Even if you just use the domains and really drill into that for good stories, because everybody says they want good stories, they want these epic stories. Well, this is how you do it. That's why it was there in the first place, so you could have those epic battles against good and evil. And because almost everybody went straight to law is good,
Mm.
chaotic is evil. Like the first, I
Right.
eventually got my hands many years later on a PDF of the stuff we peoples, we warriors put out,
Okay.
and that so before TSR did modules, a
Hmm.
company, like four of them, made a module, and that was the Palace of the Vampire Queen. A lot of people get it; they hate it because it's so bare bones and
Yeah.
it's so old school. Like every little piece of every page of every level is filled up with little boxes and stuff, and but then all you got is like a sheet, and it just tells you a room number and if there's something in there or not.
Right.
There's like not a whole lot of extra information. And if you don't read it carefully and you don't ask questions, you're going to miss why things are in level 1 or level 2 or level 3 until you get down to the big, boss fight at the end, right? When you're
Right.
dealing with where you actually fulfill the mission. Um, they did that. They also did a setting. But as you're reading through that, their little island setting where this is, and it's actually pretty interesting. Dwarfs on islands. Anyway, um, the
Oh, she dropped off. Oh, I wonder what happened. Let me and see. Hopefully, she didn't just lose her. Obviously, she lost her connection. So, give me a moment, everyone, and hopefully, she can pop in again. Or RPG Grandma, if you are still there, I'm going to pop this in, so it might be more direct for you to jump back in again instead of looking for the old link. So anyway, yeah, interview TPK. Yeah, hopefully, yeah, hopefully she didn't lose power or something like that, and she can come back in again. Here we go. Hi, how are you?
I don't know what happened. It just shut off, and then it wanted. I had to actually like. It tried to reinitialize, and then but it wouldn't. So then I had to do a bunch of stuff. I have no
Okay.
idea why I did that,
Yeah,
but
all of a sudden it just, boop, and I
yeah,
was, oh,
I was like, whoa,
it
what happened?
happens sometimes. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like, yeah, interview TBK was not part of the plan.
yeah, yeah. But
So
but yeah, you've got it. It's so you have these fights, and like I said, everybody just you can see it where they're glossing chaos to evil and law to good in those original stories, and
right.
I think that's why Gary wrote what he did in the strategic review,
Mm,
try to clarify it, and then later we get advanced D&D's version to try to clarify it. Um, because everybody was just confusing
Mm.
all these cosmic forces and tendencies. But as soon as Gary and Greyhawk wrote that it has an effect on your behavior, that's where the confusion started. I mean, even he says it. Everybody
Yeah.
started getting confused.
Thanks a lot. My ear trumpet has been struck. It's Mercurius. It's so easy to say Mercurius. Let's see um, who got the gift is Ironcaster. So congratulations. Actually, I have some free. We'll take this little moment to give out the last of my freebies for the month. So let's see. And so there's the last freebies of the month for here. Um, so of course, membership, just for those that may not know, membership allows you to come in and to come onto my Discord, and you have access to any of the games that I happen to be running or looking to run or whatnot. And so it's like first come first serve. If I'm running something, I'm looking to actually fill up my Fridays with something, but I will be playing in Shadow and Son's Wednesday night game of Savage Swords. So I'm looking forward to that. So that's my Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I have my Saturday games. So I will be looking to throw something else in there. But anyway, congratulations to all of you who have this, and let's see, any new names here? Yeah, some new names here, like mutton chomps. Congratulations, Adam Pender. I haven't seen Adam in quite a while, but welcome. And the rest, John Davies, I've seen before. Shattered Saint, congratulations, and Mobius, congratulations again. I think you've gotten this more than once. But anyway, yeah, so it's something like you were saying. I think it's something that no matter how many times you explain it, not everyone is going to eventually agree upon it, and it's gonna whatever is working at your table is the way that you're gonna go with it. And
Yeah.
uh,
That's the main thing. I mean, this is just one of those really background mechanics that you can either bring full full force to the front if you want, or
yes,
you can keep it lurking in the back. Um, and there's plenty of games that run just fine without alignment. But again, what I tend to see is you sit down and okay, now you gotta choose some virtues and some flaws. You've got to kind of define your personality a little bit. Things you might
yeah.
do.
I look at it as it is an enhancement for role playing, and if it's also a good idea. Like I know you mentioned that Professor Dungeon Master, he has everyone starts off as neutral, and
Yes.
then as they're going about their adventuring, they're going to develop various things, develop a kind of a this is my standard operating procedure kind of way that this is what you can expect from my character for the most part. But there's always going to be that deviation from it, just naturally.
Yeah.
um you
And you're
know
gonna do some. You're gonna do some bad things. You're gonna do some good things.
yeah, it's like they're even if you're no matter what, you're going to be in a position because of having to step outside of what you would normally do. If the game master is actually creating those kinds of instances of moral dilemma, hard choices, and um, that kind of thing, I think is important for both character development as well as for teaching players how the game is meant to be role played.
Right.
I know we were,
Remember,
yeah,
Darth Vader didn't start evil. He became
yes,
evil.
yeah, he became evil, and then he had his retribution arc, right? He
Right. Redeemed
came back
himself.
and he redeemed himself. His redemption arc was, he redeemed himself. And it creates a much better character, a much more nuanced character. If you have a character that is just strictly, hey, I am chaotic neutral, and this is, every single one of my decisions you can clearly put into that category, which is a very hard category to actually isolate like that. But um, you know, people are going to say that this is the character is too bland, is too predictable, is just not interesting. Um,
Right, right,
let's,
and then we get into role playing, whether somebody gets the idea to role play or
mm,
they don't,
yeah,
and that's also a range what you
yeah,
see come out of people and how they do it. And some people will always just be playing themselves.
yeah,
They're going to role play themselves being the fighter or being the wizard. So whatever, they're never going to be like, oh, it says here I'm afraid of water. They're still going to be like, but I like water and I'm going to go swimming. So they're just going to ignore that flaw or that difficulty instead of actually being terrified of
yeah,
the water. So you know, a lot of the pull I against having something like alignment, especially when it's clearly at the point where they're giving you like personality traits, like this is what your personality basically is like, is that people just don't want to play that personality. They
yeah,
don't want to think about that personality. So you've got that group, like they can't conceptualize that.
right,
So it's much better for them to just play the way they, without having an alignment, until somebody says, "Hey, you're basically playing, neutral good," or
yeah,
you're basically playing, you know, a lawful character if it's only got three things, that kind of thing. Um, and just the DM to note that the DM has figured out what they are. Uh, but there's some interesting mechanics, like keeping your alignment secret, so nobody knows at the table what their alignments are.
yeah.
Like I had forgotten about that, and then I kind of tripped back over it, and I even asked someone in the bro SR last night about that. Like, hey, you guys, you do this? They're assassins do. You know,
Yeah.
um, and which is pretty hilarious because the assassins have to pretend to be thieves and they don't know how to be thieves. So at the lower levels,
Yeah.
so they're like, "Yeah, checked it, no traps here."
Mm,
But uh, you know, of course, everybody at the table knows. But then it comes, can the DM figure out how to keep that stuff secret so actually nobody at the table knows what alignment the other player characters actually are? Only the person playing and the DM knows, which I think would be very intriguing, especially for a player versus player game, which I know is not currently the end thing to do. But
hmm
people get bored sometimes with the standard game fare, and they feel like playing one of those games. So
Yeah.
it would definitely be appropriate.
There's definitely a benefit.
Hold on a second.
Yeah. There's definitely a benefit to it. To get onto that, the comment, it's not, I didn't mean to say that the character itself is going to be boring. Um, Probably more lines of predictable, like you wouldn't, and if they break from that, once in a blue moon, that will actually be a very interesting thing, right? Because now everyone will be considering, well, what happened? Like, this is so out of character for this character. Would I force an alignment change in that case? No, unless it's something really extreme. But for the most part, um, I just like characters to be nuanced and to have a little bit more of flexibility, which is why I stated, I prefer clerics or paladins or whatnot to be more attuned to the domains of their deity rather than the very specific alignment. The two axis alignment system, I think, does not fully capture um, what a player character truly could be. As a fully developed character. But that's my own thing. So if you're, whatever works at your table it's your table, your rules. You can have a table where there's zero consequences, and you can have a table that is hyper, you know, uh, hypersensitive to alignment changes and whatnot as well. So whatever works out for you. But to me, I like some nuance.
Didn't know. Yeah, yeah, nuance. I have to go.
Yes,
I'm getting some phone calls. I gotta go get a
sure.
teenager. I'm sorry,
No,
but
no problem at all. I so appreciate you coming on a holiday weekend. I know I was getting texts from my wife. It was like, coming over for cake, and I was like, yeah, give me another, 15, 20 minutes or so, and I'll be over.
well,
But
I hope the audience got something to think about, like why you might want to use it, why
yeah,
actually replaces it in the non-alignment games, because there are things that replace it basically, and maybe I don't know. Open your mind up to the idea that alignment isn't necessarily a bad mechanic, isn't necessarily a good mechanic. It's just a tool. It,
yes,
it's just a tool. Like so many things in the role game tabletop community, we've got all these wonderful tools, and it's what you do with them that
yeah,
that makes the game rock or
yeah,
or not. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, absolutely, Sir Grimy. Absolutely, you can. We've already, mentioned, there you can have those consequences to any game that has no alignment system whatsoever.
Yep.
It's just you're just going to apply what makes sense for the world that they're in. You know, um, if you're in if you're in a game system that has no alignments and you're in a let's say you're in a world with like orcs and stuff, and you're doing something that is just the exact opposite of what Orca society is. They're gonna smash your head against the rock,
They're
for
going to
doing
punish
it.
you.
It's like, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just you know, um, and that's if you're doing the right thing, the good thing, So,
Yeah,
yeah,
because an orc's idea of what's right and good is going
yeah,
to be different than maybe
what
a
their norms
human's.
are. Yeah,
You know, so and it doesn't mean that it doesn't make logical sense.
mm,
A culture. Let's take something from Edgar Rice Burroughs, the Therns,
mm,
the green aliens.
right,
They have a culture based on strength, survival of the fittest, survival, the strongest rise to the top, choosing only the strongest children uh, to be born. The strongest individuals get the strongest children to raise. Wiping out your enemy, that's just natural selection at work.
hmm,
And um, and they are not, they are actually not emotional. That they are actually fairly logical. So they're kind
right,
of like um, love, mercy, compassion, um, even just acting in a certain way. They don't necessarily get angry. It's just, this is how you survive, this is what you do. And all those silly humans, they're clearly the weaker species.
yeah,
So but they're also living on a dying planet in the desert.
yeah.
So, it makes logical sense what they're doing, even if some of them inside really they're in love with somebody, really they didn't kill somebody they should have, you know. Um, they're trying to find a way not to have to kill somebody,
Yeah.
but also not get punished by their tribe.
Okay, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much. And yeah, this is a great, a great topic and something that I'm sure, will be reoccurring because, there's only about 5 or 6 things that happen in the tabletop role playing space that keep on regurgitating themselves and we keep on going back to. So definitely not the last time that I would love to talk to you on this topic or any other topic as well. So thank you so much, RPG
Thank
Grandma,
you.
for coming in. Thank everyone, for those that have, participated. So some new faces, some, or names, I should say, and some others that have always been here. So thank you so much. For those that gifted memberships or, put in some super chats, thank you so much for that as well. And I will begin tomorrow with it's Sumerian September, so be on the lookout for some content for Sumerian September, anything related to Conan the Sumerian or other Sumerian stories as well for the entire month of September. You all have a great one and take care. And I'm going to hit the end stream. We'll have about 2 seconds or so, RPG Grandma. But again, thanks